I always say that like my least favorite project is the one that I just finished, and my most favorite project is the one that I'm currently working on, and to a certain extent, like that will always be the case.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg podcast. Today I'm here with Jackson Green, super talented designer and art director out here in Los Angeles. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Not bad. I like doing the podcast kind of in the middle of the week because it gives me an excuse to distract myself from actual work for a little bit, you know?
I feel that that's basically why I take on half the projects that I do. The problem is then I have actual work distracting me from actual work.
Yeah.
And it's probably not the best system.
Right. I know. It's so funny. Like sometimes like when you're not busy, you feel like you need to fill it all with like all this work and you don't know what to do. And then when I'm too busy, I'm just like, I just want a break, you know? But I go back and forth between those two mindsets.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where like I feel like in order to focus on anything, I just have to put myself in a situation where there's the most possible tension.
Yeah.
Like it's like a very delicate like balancing act where I'm just like walking across this tightrope and I'm like, if there's not enough weight on either side, it's gonna be bad. But like when you get just the right amount of like I am busy, it's the best. Because then yeah, I don't know.
I think too it's a weird thing where you don't like, you need to be busy in order to like maybe not deserve, but like yearn for free time. Like if you're not doing anything ever, all you think like, oh, I need to be getting something done. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But if you're busy all the time, you want to relax. And I think you almost have to like in your mind, like earn the relaxing. Cause once you do work for the day, like you feel a lot less guilty about like not doing anything the rest of the day, at least for me.
You got to like accomplish just the right amount of stuff, you know? Mm-hmm. There's also a thing where it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like there are projects where like I almost do them as like a reward for doing the other stuff, where it's like, I don't know, because like a lot of this is like, it's fun, you know? It's like graphics, art, design, it's fun, it's enjoyable, or it should be. Like there's a reason I do this instead of like, I don't know, accounting or something that I'm not good at math, so.
Right.
You know, but I'll set it up so like I've got like the really fun ones that are like very fulfilling, and then I'll like the other ones which are like as part of some other role, which more like just taking care of business type of stuff. And I'm like, if I get this much done here, then I can have a little of this as a treat.
Yeah, exactly. One time I recorded it was probably like the first or second one I ever done, like more than a year and a half ago or whatever. And I did like 35 minutes with no recording. That shit sucked. I
mean, at least after 35 minutes, you probably got like a good conversational rapport going.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes, you know, it takes a while to get like better in the conversation, I guess, with the person, especially if I've never met them. But then at the same time, it's like you need the early part to be good to hook the person to listen to the later part that may be better. So it's like a weird thing. I
also feel like you're interviewing like artists and graphic designers and all these people. And like, I don't think there's a group of people known for being less social than graphic designers. Yeah. You know, like
for real.
There's that classic joke of like the people standing at the back of the rave wearing all black and not dancing. Those are the graphic designers, you know?
Yeah, for real. I think too, there's something about like, in other fields, like let's say you're a actor or a comedian, like all these people that are always on podcasts and it's almost like they're professionals because they can just like banter and stuff. Their skill in their career almost directly translates to how good they may be like talking or as a podcast person, interview, whatever. Designers and artists, like their talent in that field almost like is the opposite. Sometimes the best people, it's like they're so like introverted or like not comfortable talking that like it's not parallel, you know, like skill in art versus skill in social skills or whatever.
Well, like makes sense when you take it all as like a technical skill and the amount of time that you have to spend doing anything. Like those comedians are the amount of time that like a designer, like an artist spends working on their medium, sometimes in isolation, just like fine tuning, getting their technique dialed in, getting their style dialed in. That's the time that like comedians, actors, whatever, are spending learning how to interact on like a face-to-face basis, like fine tuning all of those things. So it's,
it makes sense. How, what have you kind of been working on this week so far?
A lot of stuff. I full-time, I'm art director for a record label called Mad Decent, like independent dance music label based in Los Angeles. Outside of that, I have a pretty stacked freelance practice where like I'm doing a lot of design for my friend Tyler, who makes bass music under the name Of the Trees. I do design and direction for my friends in a band called Jesus Piece. They're like a metalcore band based out of Philly. I do design for my friend Nick's brand. It's called Holiday. I have been working on my own stuff, which is what I'm wearing now. It's the Total Work brand. And I've just been trying to, draw more typefaces. I always set like a yearly challenge for myself, like how many typefaces do I want to get done? And obviously it's not like it's not always like a command performance type of thing, but like this year I want to try to see if I can round the bases on 10 typefaces just to say I did it.
Wow.
And so I've been working on that also. There's definitely other stuff that I'm just not thinking of right now or can't talk about right now for other reasons. But just trying to, again, it's all about like keeping myself the right amount of busy so that I can use work to distract me from work and offer myself the chance to work as a treat after I do the other work.
Right. I think I read somewhere like a lot of the typefaces, or if maybe not all of them, maybe all of them, if I'm not mistaken, you just are like for you, right? Like you use them as like part of your, like library rather than sell them to like the public.
Yeah, I don't really like selling or giving other people my typefaces. I tried it once and it was not, how do I put this? Like, I didn't like it. It felt weird. It was, it was really weird for me. And I was like, I feel like I mostly did it because at the time, like one of them had gotten like a lot of traction on Instagram and I was, broke and people started copying that typeface, and rather than, letting somebody else earn off of the back of my, rather than like be broke and, watching other people like use bootleg versions of this thing that I had made, I figured I would just sell it myself, and it sold really well, but it also like it felt really gross too. Like I was like not stoked on that experience. And so like, to whoever has that typeface, like good on you, like use it, enjoy it. But like, it's like, I feel like my typefaces are sort of like, I look at them and I go like, okay, this is like an expression of how I want stuff to look and my vision for things. And so I'm like, it's something that I've put a lot of time and consideration and intentionality into. And when it becomes it wasn't a thing that I just had the ability to, go out and buy. It was something that I like slowly fine-tuned over the course of my practice, over the course of my life. And so like, just offering it up as a thing that like, as almost like a piece of like a Lego kit where you can just like slot it in, be like, boom, got the aesthetic. It felt weird to me because it's, I guess to me, it's not just an aesthetic. It's like this whole thing that's been developing. So.
Right. I'm sure too, like since you keep them for your own arsenal, that further helps you like solidify your own aesthetic and your own style that someone can't just go and rip off. Like maybe they can get close or like attempt to do something that you may do. But if you're creating like, if you have 10 whatever fonts that you use, like no one's going to be able to like keep up with all of that if you're just producing them yourself and using them on client work and stuff.
Yeah, I like to make it so like even the smallest little details on things are sort of like, part like it's clear that like nothing is like pre-made. Like everything is like very intentionally crafted towards a certain end. So like, yeah, like even like the typeface on this shirt right now. It's a very clean, like Swiss sans serif, but it's the one that I made based on the things that I like seeing in those type of fonts.
Right.
And so like, to me, it's like, even if nobody notices, actually one person did notice at one point. They're like, is that your sans serif? And I was like, that's amazing that you even picked up on that. But you know, even if nobody notices, I notice, I guess. And it's like, something about it just feels like me. I look at it and I can like see it and identify it as my thing or my work.
Right. What was the reason you started the like Total Work kind of project or brand, whatever you want to call it?
Well, it was kind of something I was kicking around going back to being a student even, because, you know, like I sort of wanted to like make like a creative agency. There was this old factory in Camden, New Jersey, around where I grew up. And I was like, how sick would it be to like buy this factory and like convert it into like this, because like Camden has had a rough history as a place. You know, for a while it was like the highest violent crimes rate in America. It's pretty destitute. It's you know, it's like a food desert in a lot of it. Has not been treated well, and apparently, you know, for a long time it was like this like bustling little, you know, port city right over the bridge from Philadelphia. But like as time went on, like corruption took hold, jobs left, and so, you know, it collapsed and became this like, you go there, it's like beautiful, like, you know, architecture that on crumbling buildings. And you know, I was like, oh man, how crazy would it be to like get like this factory out here. And like, you know, there's an arts high school in Camden, New Jersey, like a magnet arts high school. Like, how cool would it be if like I could give the kids at this high school like a place where they could come and like work on stuff and develop stuff. And so like, part of it was like this desire to create this like creative space, and part of it was just the desire to like have an outlet for my own personal practice. Like, you know, like this would be, you know, my creative agency would be Total Work. And so like it's sort of grown from there to just be like an outlet for things that, you know, there are things that I express, I guess, like in my personal practice as a designer, where like, you know, it's all sort of like coming from the same place, but it's like for other ends, for other people. Total Work is kind of like my mouthpiece, where it's very explicitly like, these are the things I'm interested in, and these are the things that I want to talk about, I want to address, I want to study and experiment with, and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's cool. And hearing kind of about the like Camden and some of the more like how you describe the area, like it makes sense with the like art direction, how it's very like almost like the opposite of what a lot of design like stuff looks like, where this almost looks more like labor-ish and like, you know, working with your hands and stuff. And I like how it's kind of a juxtaposition between like this studio space and then also like real work, I guess I usually call it, when it's like people actually building things, you know. Like sometimes I feel like the work that we do, like it's such a privilege, and it's kind of just like, I don't know, it feels like work on the days it's hard, but on the days it's not hard, it feels just like something for fun. And I don't think other jobs like usually think that way, where they're like, today was just fun, when they're working in like a factory or something like that. I feel that 100%, but it's also, I'm very much like a physicalist. And so to me, like, no matter what you're doing, like that's labor, that's work, you know, like work is what, like everything we are is doing something. I think, you know, Buckminster Fuller said it best when he goes, I appear to be a verb. Like we're like effectively just like this series of actions, this series of ongoing processes. So like, even when you're doing design, you're sitting at a computer, like on some level, like that's an action that you're doing. It's a technical skill. It's something that you've refined in the same way that, like, you know, I feel like we all kind of learn things the same way, where it's like, you know, we learn them somatically. We learn them through our bodies, through doing them. So like, even just like sitting on the computer, like, you know, where like all the shortcuts are, all the keyboard things are, like those synapses, those like nerve dendrite connections exist in your brain as like a physical pathway that things are following along. So like everything comes back to the body and like that very real idea of like physically doing a thing. And yeah, like I agree with you, like it's not as, what's the word, you're not like expending the same level of physical effort that you would necessarily to do other things, but it's still effort, and it's still that physical process on some level.
That's true. And I feel like what you said about the like having those muscle memory kind of things where, you know, like these little things, that is never apparent to me until I'm showing someone something that has like no idea, and they're just like, whoa, like, how'd you do that? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, everyone knows it's just control, like whatever. And like, it just feels like when something's so, you've done it so much, it feels like you never had to learn it. Like you just always had this like inherent ability to like know all these hotkeys or whatever it may be.
It's also a funny thing where, are you ever like explaining to someone something to someone, and they're like, how did you do that? And when you try to process it like on a conscious level, you can't remember. You know like what you did, and you can do it in the moment, but like when you're actually having to break it down step by step, it's become such an inherent functional thing that you don't think about it, and you're like, I can't remember that exact key command, hold on. And you have to actually do the thing and look at what you're doing to remember which keys you're touching exactly, because you just sort of, you know them by feel.
Right. I have that problem sometimes where like I've been stepping away a little bit from like the space of like tutorials, but I've made a few on my channel, but a lot more stuff I'm focusing on other stuff now. But like sometimes someone will ask me like, oh, can you make a tutorial like for this thing? And they'll send me like a picture or like a screenshot or whatever of something I did. And I try to think like, this was such a specific like one-time thing. I don't know if I'm going to even be able to like reverse engineer it and break it down into like just like an action or whatever, you know?
Yeah. It's like things are so context dependent too, that like sometimes it's not like what I did. It's just like, these are the confluence of things that occurred to allow this thing to exist.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But I feel
I get that. What are those like AI kind of generated like face things that you're always sharing? And like, is that just some big personal like project type thing?
To answer the second question, yes, it's part of like a larger thing. To answer the first question, I've been playing around with like Midjourney recently, which is an AI protocol. And it's prompt based, so it's really easy and it's really intuitive. And I started to use it to generate like mugshots, I guess. They're like, they're not exactly mugshots, but like that's what I call them, because that's kind of what they're like, mugshots, passport photos, driver's license photos. But my goal is to generate 3 a day for the entire year. I think I'm up to like, last night I did like uploaded like my 165th, which would be like 55 days of these, AI generated mugshots. And it's the same prompt every time, just iterating on that prompt over and over and over again.
Okay.
And to me, it's like AI has always been like a really fascinating tool as like just a thing to experiment with. And so like being able to like incorporate it somehow like fits into like a lot of what I've been thinking about and a lot of what I've been doing. And Midjourney again is like prompt based, so I don't have to like go into Python or mess with TensorFlow or like any of that stuff. It's like I just put in the words and it outputs the thing that I'm thinking of. So I see it as this really like amazing tool to experiment and mess with. And yeah, it's like it sort of plays into like where I plan on pushing like the next round of total work stuff, but it's also, which is its own rabbit hole. But yeah,
it's weird because they're so similar, but like they're very different at the same time. Like looking at each of them, like it almost looks like it started with like the same like raw whatever like form of like the face and the haircut and everything, and then it just starts to get like stranger and stranger. I could imagine seeing these like on a giant either digital or physical space, like super small, just all of them. I feel like that would be cool.
I just love how like, like with every sort of like algorithm or like, sufficiently advanced AI program, algorithm, whatever you have, like there's always this room for like these little places where like it does something that you absolutely did not expect, And so like every once in a while I get one and I'm like, why is that one like that? And it's very exciting for me. It's like I get sort of the same thrill out of playing with have you used TikTok?
Mm-hmm.
To me, TikTok has like the most interesting algorithm of any social media app. So like a lot of my time spent on TikTok isn't just like looking at the videos, but sort of trying to like feed the algorithm ideas by like looking at specific pointed things to see what it will feed me in return.
Right.
Because occasionally it hits me with something where I go, what made you think that I wanted to see that?
Yeah.
And like, you were right, but what led you to that conclusion? Because like, it's not like a person. I can't ask it what it was thinking. So it's this game of trying to like do my best to reverse engineer like where the ingredients came from.
Yeah, that app is so weird because it always proves to me that it's like more fair than the rest of them, because I'll be scrolling and it'll be something with like, 5 million plays or whatever, like some trend, and the next one will just be like some guy in a dark room like recording, and you could tell he doesn't even really know how to like use social media, and it has like 6 views, and you're like, damn, they're really like giving everyone a shot here, and if I end up liking this video, it'll get pushed to like the next tier of like unlucky suspects.
It's so good. Like there's a significant part of my feed at this point which is just like those videos basically, where it's like I get more ones where it's like they max out at around 60 views. I'm also like the most bizarre assortment of sponsored ads. Like I don't get like ads for like real things anymore. I get like people who are pushing their content who maybe like don't have but like people who like, it's very clear that like they're pushing this, but I'm like, why are you sponsoring this post?
Right. It's like not even like a marketing thing.
Yeah. It's like them trying to like build a following, but like what they're doing is just so bizarre. And I'm like, I love this. This is.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting place. I wanted to ask you, I'm curious. So I've seen you on your story and I've talked to you a little bit about it, like at different like shows and stuff around here. And I've noticed that you know some of the people that I've seen like in the area or some of my friends and stuff. And does that like whole like rave or techno house, whatever scene have like an influence on your design work at all? Or is that kind of just its own separate like hobby and interest that you have?
I mean, like, I don't think, to answer in a very like broad sense, like everything informs everything.
Right.
So like, electronic music has always been like, deeply a part of who I am. Like growing up, like the two things I really liked were like hardcore, I guess punk music, like for lack of a better term, and then like electronic music. And so like both of those things have like definitely influenced how I approach my practice, because like a significant part of what I do is I work with like, musicians. I work with people who make music that I like, and I think that's really cool. So like, like there's definitely like a dialogue there, but like also like, the things that I want to do graphically, I think go beyond just like, oh, this is like a techno thing, or this is like a hardcore thing, or whatever. It's, so like 50-50, I would say.
It's interesting because like a lot of your work has like, I would say, somewhat in that like subculture of like a lot of techno and rave stuff, but then you as like an individual definitely have like the New York kind of East Coast like hardcore vibe, even with the hat and just like that whole scene. I feel like a lot of people look like how you look, that straight edge hardcore scene people.
I've got my little X tattoo on my arm, I'm still here, still sincere. But it's interesting because when I was growing up, they weren't super connected. I feel like it was like I would go to like cool electronic shit or like raves or whatever, and then I would go to hardcore shows, and there wasn't a lot of exchange between the two. But like now it seems like there's a lot more cross-pollination, which I think is really great. Like even going back to my Friends in Jesus piece, like Dave from Jesus Peace makes his own music under the name From Earth. Lou has does DJing and like makes his own music under the name Lou 2K. Like there's a lot more, appreciation from both sides about what the other side is doing. Yeah. And to me that's good, because like what attracted me to both is kind of the same. It's this very like DIY, communal spirit where it's like, we will do this any place, anywhere, anytime, sort of like get the gear, get in the car, go out, make it happen. And yeah.
I agree. And I was more knowledgeable on like punk and hardcore and stuff in high school and growing up. Like I didn't listen to any electronic music at all, but I was always in that other scene. And then going into college, I lived with people that these dudes like Perfect Dark that do this like collective like DJ whatever thing, and they put me on to like house and techno and all this, and then I started going to their shows, and then especially out here when it's like some Renegade or some shit, like you see a lot more of the similarities, and like you're saying, like that grassroots kind of like, oh well, this shit's getting cracked, like let's move this to this next spot, and like it feels like the same vibe of when I was seeing like these backyard shows like back in high school or whatever.
Yeah, I think what got me into it when I was super young was like I was really into this band from Philly called Ink and Dagger. Mm-hmm. And like they, like the lead singer of Ink and Dagger had like an Aphex Twin tattoo, and I had no idea what that was, but I was like, that's sick. And so like that sort of got me in there, but also just like on my own, like you end up like on a weird internet rabbit hole. You find like a crazy like cassette at like a flea market. Like I have this one, right. I don't remember how young I was when I got it, but it's like a jungle cassette with like this neon like tiki character on the front. I was like, this is so sick. Because like I feel like a significant part of my childhood was like just finding music, and like I didn't have like previews or anything, so it was all like, this cover looks good, I'm gonna see what this sounds like. And yeah,
that stuff, I feel like the committing to music to either purchase or listen to back before all these digital mediums was a lot more of a risk or commitment. So I feel like the cover art was like, it was way more important almost in a sense, because it was like, this shit better attract you, because like you're not going to stumble upon it on a video that auto plays and make you hear it or something. So and I think that electronic scene does a great job of that, because like they just have a lot of that stuff has such nice to look at, like just especially those like little Y2K like characters and stuff. Like you can't help but be like, what the fuck is this? I have to see what's going on here.
Oh man, I remember like having some like the happy hardcore mixes as a kid, and like having to make my mom translate stuff, because it's a bunch of it is in Dutch, and I don't really speak. I can like read Dutch, but like I can't really. There are words that I don't know, and like my mom speaks Dutch fluently, so she's like, this means this. And just also wishing I could like, because they have like whole like gear catalogs in them, where it's almost like a, like when it's like, oh, like look at all these like 10 pages of like long sleeve shirts, hats, t-shirts, hoodies, whatever.
And like all the crazy gabber clothes and shit, like with the big ass pants and stuff.
It looks so sick. But yeah, it was my mom was not about to like let me order a bunch of overpriced shirts from the Netherlands as like a 12-year-old kid,
Yeah. What speaking of kind of this music stuff, what's it like working with like the Mad Decent and with Diplo's company and stuff, and like I guess, can you take me a little bit through like some of your day-to-day like stuff that you do there?
Yeah, like first off, it's like really cool actually, like so to start with, like Mad Decent and Diplo are like paired because they're obviously like really closely related, but in truth, like he's not super involved with what we do as a label. It's like an entirely different team. Even like Diplo as an artist has his own creative team that like builds out a lot of his stuff. But like label side, we take care of like the artists who are signed to us. Obviously, like we try to help them figure out their creative direction, art direction. A lot of it is getting assets together, because like we're a label. That's what we do. We try to support these artists and get them the things they need to promote their music, get the streams, get the sales, all that stuff. You know, merch design comes into it. Mad Decent also has like a brand unto itself that we get to play with and do merch, stickers.
Is that the higher
events.
ground stuff?
That, yeah, the higher ground is like another one where like yeah, that's actually one of the things that I got to do in-house at Mad Decent was when Diplo first went like, yo, I want to move into this more like house music space, and I want to start a label about it. We went, oh, cool. And you know, he had done this record, which was the Higher Ground EP, and we're like, well, that's what we'll name the label after. And his creative director basically was like, yo, you killed it with the work on that. Like, the label, just do your thing, like free reign. And so I just went, okay, and obviously because it's like a label side thing also, like it's, you know, he's not going to be super involved with that beyond the releases on it. And most of what we do is going to be in-house. So it made sense from that perspective too. And so like, yeah, I basically went like, okay, like Heaven's Gate, cool. Like 70s black light art, cool. Let's make the whole label based on these two things. So like it was a lot of like deep diving into like UFO cults and like, I don't know, putting all these strange pieces together, and people seem to have responded really well to it, and that's exciting because like that was, I guess, one of the first times I got to sort of build like a brand like this from the ground up and watch it like take off. And like to this day, like I'm still the one putting together like the release artwork for Higher Ground. Like that's all there's, other than like a few like sort of distro releases type of thing, there hasn't been a single release from the label that I haven't done the artwork for, and that's pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like
Higher Ground's like a label then in its own right.
Yeah, like because like Mad Decent is an entirely independent label, which is sick to me because like even a lot of indie labels have like major label distro, but so Mad Decent is completely independent thing, and in addition to like Mad Decent as its own label with its own roster of artists, we also have sub labels, and we also do distro for other labels. So like for a while, like one of our sub labels was Good Enough, rest in peace. Now we've got Higher Ground. We work with Pizza Slime on their record label. Earth Eater's Chemical X imprint is through us. Like it's really cool because like again, like I like that it is a completely independent record label, and now we're helping these other artists also be independent and do their own thing.
It's crazy you have like, you know, it's already almost like within this like niche category, and then it breaks out into all these other like even smaller like universes, but they're still kind of their own entities and big in their own right, which is kind of why I'm asking, because it's almost like you guys have done a good job at them all living in their own space, because it's like hard to even track like the family tree, you know, of like where everything comes from. And that's cool, like because so like Mad Decent, then basically Diplo would be one of the artists, and then the Higher Ground stuff's his own label, and then that just branches out into pretty much you do all the branding and stuff for that.
Yeah, like I do all the branding for Higher Ground, but like even for the mainline Mad Decent stuff, like, you know, Aluna is one of our big artists, so we like help her find like creative direction, get her stuff together to be released, you know, all that stuff. Like, yeah, like we try to help. We do different things for like different labels, different things under the umbrella, but like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was maybe not the most coherent answer to that question. I apologize.
No, I'm
strike all that from the record. We're going to do that over.
What was your role then in the recent like artwork? Because I saw it for the Diplo album. I saw the cover artwork. I really liked when I first saw it on like the Spotify, like whatever they call them, like the animated like little covers. And then I saw the billboards too with like the super distressed type and everything, and like those kind of eerie like Diplo faces. And I was curious like what you kind of worked on within that.
So for the most recent Diplo release, that was like the first Diplo project which I've actually been like a creative director on in any capacity, which was pretty cool because considering we handled that label side, like it was, the label team handling creative direction. It was me and the creative director for the label, Lola, both working on that project. So we were the ones who were like, okay, like we set the concept for the record, we set the execution, we reached out to the various teams that we wanted involved to like help execute on it. And then in addition to all of the directorial stuff, I also handled like the design, the layout, the typography. So like all the distress type and everything, that was me.
That's
and yeah, it was super sick because like it was a very long project, like probably like, there's like projects that are long because they're consistently ongoing, and then there's projects that are long just because like the whole process of it takes a while. And that was probably like, I feel like that was in the works for the better part of like 2 years, it feels like.
Oh, damn.
So like getting all of those things together and finally seeing all of the pieces come together and the machine come to life was pretty awe-inspiring. And then we got to sort of like go on tour with him when he toured Europe this most recent trip.
That's tight.
Which was also super sick because like I've, like even though I've been working for Mad Decent now for the better part of 4 years, like I've still only seen like Diplo DJ like we've spent a lot of time together, but I've only gotten to see him like do his thing in like a few different settings, and seeing him in like full rock star mode, like seeing all of these like screaming European kids like absolutely losing their minds while he's just like killing it night after night was like, wow, this is cool,
He's such like a huge thing, especially like he's already huge, not even just in the space of that genre. Like he's almost like transcended like just the electronic music, obviously, with like producing and everything. But I feel like he's also still done a good job at even the people that are like too cool for school are still kind of like, Diplo's pretty tight, like he hasn't like gotten too out of touch with like the people that kind of, I guess, are self kind of proclaiming what's cool or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting because like so like when EDM happened, I was not like super into it, but like one of the things I did like was like Major Lazer, because I always thought that was interesting. And when the sort of EDM boom happened and you had like all this other stuff and everything got like very washed out and overdone. Where was I going with this? Every 10 years or so, things get a critical reappraisal. And I feel like recently, like Pon de Floor, like that first like big Major Lazer song sort of like turned 10. And I've seen like Diplo like play it out more. And it's sick to see because like that song, it still holds up. It's one of those things where like even after the boom has come and gone and like you lose the cheap imitations, like that song still stands alone as like, this is good. Like people like this. It goes off. It still sounds fresh. It like kind of speaks to the vision, for lack of a better term, like, like, because part of the reason that sound got so washed out and ubiquitous is because like he was one of the first people to do that. Like nobody had heard shit like that before, like that blending of different styles and sounds. So like the fact that after all this time it still sounds interesting and compelling, it's like, it's cool. I don't know. Yeah,
I agree. And with all the stuff, it seems like, I knew you were probably busy with the Mad Decent stuff and the Higher Ground, but like hearing you explain, kind of the different pockets and everything that you do, like how do you have time, or like how do you make time to do so much like freelance work then too? Or do you just like, I guess like how selective are you with that stuff, and like what's your process like to kind of balance the schedule?
When you say like how selective are you with that stuff, do you mean like in taking on new projects?
Yeah.
Or like, well, I guess like, so I've got this really awful thing where like, if I don't care about something, like if I'm like not interested about something, like you could offer me like $1 million and I would not be able to like lift my arm to the computer to like do it. And that sounds like, maybe that sounds like noble or something, but it's not. Like, I literally cannot, like, my brain is just like, nope, can't focus on it, like, can't think about it, no thoughts, brain smooth. So like for me, it's just like when someone offers me something where I'm like, oh, this is cool, it becomes a thing that I want to do, because again, like, part of the reason I do design is because it's fun for me. The process itself holds my attention. And so like, yeah, it's not like a balancing act. It's all stuff that I really want to do. So it's just a matter of like making sure that I take the time to, you know, take care of myself as a person, obviously, like, but like, you know, just like making time to do all these things that I want to do, I guess, like, you know. And there's definitely like some sleepless nights, but for the most part, like, I don't know, it all balances out pretty evenly. Yeah, like I obviously like spend the day working on the label stuff, but like a lot of time when I'm done here, I'll go like to my friend Nick's studio and we'll work all night on holiday stuff, and or like I'll go home and just like sit at my desk and crank stuff out there. And I feel like this sounds like I'm doing a lot of work, but like, you know, I read a lot, I go out to shows, like I've been, you know, biking out east a lot more lately, which is great. Like I'm trying to bike ride to Anaheim this weekend and back, which is, for those who are listening, that's like a 20-mile ride both ways. Like, I don't know, like it's, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I'm sorry.
No, it does. And I have that same thing too, where like now I'm freelance solely for a while, but when I was working at in-house and then doing other stuff, like sometimes I would think like, damn, like all I do is work, or like even my girl would be like, oh, you need to like do stuff for fun or like relax, because I'd be working on night on something that was like different from the day job. But then I was like, well, but I like doing this. Like I'd probably be working on some other thing that's just not paying me any money. That's just like gonna go online or something. So it's almost like a weird, I've spoke about this before, where like design's interesting because you're like, it's the same work you want to like finish and escape from to like do other work. It's almost the same. Like your hobby and your career are so like intertwined, for better or for worse. Sometimes it's hard to know what's like when to rest, I guess you could say.
What's interesting is like growing up on the East Coast, like you walk, you bike, you take public transit everywhere. And to me, that was like, so it was like always like a feature of my life. Like, and what's funny is even when I go out there now, like it would be a thing where like I will leave the house with like a computer in my backpack and I will walk, go run errands, and then like as things come in that I need to work on, I will stop, find some public Wi-Fi, kick the stuff out there, and then just keep it pushing. And so like in the middle of getting a bunch of work done, I'm walking 10, 15 miles a day.
Yeah, that's smart.
And like while doing the work. And to me, it feels more natural almost to like do it while I'm moving, while I'm active. Like I don't know, I feel better about everything that I'm doing. So like, yeah, I don't know, that like getting outside, doing stuff, moving, like indulging in the physical processes is like important to me.
Yeah, I agree. Do you, is most of your work done even when you're at the office, done on like a laptop? So do you keep everything kind of moving like that and mobile?
I feel like I've been living out of a backpack for the better part of a decade, I would say. Like I don't think I've had like one consistent address longer than 4 years, maybe. Actually, I would say longer than like every 3 years, I'd say at maximum, starting at maybe 16. Like, wow. Yeah, like because like me and my dad shuffled around through a few different living situations. Like when I moved out, I shuffled around through a few different living situations, and even now here in LA, like I've been here 3.5 years and I've had 3 addresses. So like I feel like I'm just consistently on nomad mode. And
right.
I don't know, I kind of prefer that. Like I like just being able to go where the wind blows. Like not too long, like I guess it is kind of a minute ago, but like COVID has ruined everybody's perception of time, but I did a month in Milan, and was working from there for a little bit, and that was incredible. Like,
that's fun.
Yeah, I don't know, just being able to take what I do, and go anywhere is kind of important to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like that or want to do that, but then there's also only a certain amount of people that actually do it like sustainably and can do that always. Like, it's almost, I think sometimes people fantasize about that, but they're not built for it at the same time. Like, they're a creature of their own like comfort, because I feel like I would want to do what you're doing, but then I'd be like, oh, we're like, I don't have my setup now though. Like, I also am a big proponent of like having your space like dialed into how you like it. So sometimes when I'm somewhere else, I could feel like, oh, I don't have this same like luxury that I have at the other place. But then on the other hand, sometimes that can help you because it lets you kind of push through that barrier and maybe come up with something different.
What's funny is, like, in a space where it almost feels like too much like home, I can't get any work done. I can't. I don't know if this is like an East Coast thing or like a Jackson thing, but like one of my favorite parts about like New York City, Philly to a certain extent is like, you know, you have your space where you sleep, you know, your apartment or whatever, but like you live in the city. It's like this wider thing that you are constantly a part of. So like for me, like the home, like the place where your mattress is like, that's for that purpose. That's where you go to sleep. But activity is done outside of that space. And so like for me, like I get nothing done in my apartment, like ever. It's very bad. Like I will try to, like I recently moved my desk even into the kitchen because I'm like, maybe if I'm like in a separate room, it will help me do work in this space. But like, yeah, like it is almost more beneficial for me to be like outside of like a home type of area if I want to get stuff done. Sense.
Do you where are you at right now? Like, where do you work out of in LA?
So I'm currently in the Mad Decent offices. Actually.
Okay.
That's what this space behind me is, and also the space in front of me that you can't see. That's in like the Arts District in downtown LA.
Okay. Right.
But yeah.
That's cool.
It's great because it's like within 2 miles or so of where I live. So I bike in every day, and that's great. You know, get some of my exercise in. And Echo Park, obviously not super far away. That's where like, you know, I've got another studio space that I work out of, and yeah.
What do you think, considering like a lot of the freelance stuff you've done and the stuff with Mad Decent, Higher Ground, Total Work, like even looking at your Instagram page, like that's why I asked you like all the ats. It's a lot of stuff to see that you're involved in. What has been, if you could pinpoint it, like the most rewarding or exciting kind of project that you've worked on in your career so far, if you can name one?
I would say like in terms of like rewarding as like, this is kind of what I want to be doing with things, like head and shoulders above, it's like Total Work. Just because, again, I feel like that's the purest distillation of like, I have an idea of like the things that I would like to talk about, the things that I would like to address, and like how I would like to see them addressed. It's like, these are the ideas that I want to explore and that I think are interesting. But like, there's also stuff where like I look at it and I'm like, this was like an accomplishment for other reasons. Like, you know, like this was like, you know, I was able to manage this team, or like I was able to like hit this compromise between these ideas and, you know, my desires and like the desires of the people working with me. I don't know, like there's a bunch of stuff that I look at, and it's all sort of like, I always say that like my least favorite project is the one that I just finished, and my most favorite project is the one that I'm currently working on, and to a certain extent like that will always be the case. But in terms of like singular things that I would have to pick, it would definitely be just probably Total Work, just because that's me, and I don't always know what I'm going to be doing with it, but it's always going to be something where I'm like, this is important to me. And
yeah, I get that. And I get also that there's rewarding, I guess, or whatever is also is very that can mean many things, you know, from a monetary standpoint, reputation standpoint, like self-fulfilling. Like I'm sure it was pretty rewarding from a like being a kid growing up to like now working on like the Bad Brain stuff, if you were into hardcore and punk and stuff, and then now you're kind of revitalizing that entity or whatever. I'm sure that stuff was cool.
That was so sick. Because also like Garrett from Trash Talk Babylon, like he's like a homie too, so like having him hit me up for that was cool. Like I guess kind of my thing is like I always like working with people that I like, so like having someone that you already, you know, like and respect hitting you up to do stuff is cool, because it's like, you know, clearly if the people that you think are cool think you're cool, you're probably doing something right. And then to get hit up to work on this thing for this, you know, band that has been this crazy influential constant since you were a kid is like kind of mind-blowing. Like I met Dr. No, the guitarist from Bad Brains, in the crowd at a Devo concert when I was like 13.
Damn.
And that was so like, in a weird way, I was like, damn, I just fulfilled on some level like little 13-year-old Jackson's dreams of like, you know, I don't know, it's cool.
Right. It's funny, the people that like certain people's music, the actual like the difference between their characteristics and what they like from the actual band or musician's interests. Like for example, like Greg Ginn from Black Flag, he's always said that like Grateful Dead is his favorite band, which is like, you know, the same people that would like Black Flag maybe like, you know, fuck that, like hippie shit or whatever. Whereas like, you know, and Henry Rollins or whoever, like not to name another just Black Flag person, but like is all into jazz and stuff. So it's funny to see like their influences aren't necessarily from other stuff in their own little world.
I feel like that's always the case though with like the best art is like, because I don't know, I feel like sort of, I was having a conversation actually last night with Brian Rivera, who's like another pretty well-known
he's
designer.
dope.
But we were talking about how like a lot of design seems to come from this place of like, you know, graphic designers looking at graphic design to make graphic design for graphic designers. And like for me, it's like I don't really look at a lot of like, there's stuff that I definitely like in the world of graphic design, but I can't tell you what's going on in like contemporary design. I'm really not paying attention to it. Like even
that's good, I think.
When I was a student, like there was a period of time where I didn't have a computer. So like when I was first coming up with a lot of ideas about how I wanted stuff to look and how I wanted stuff to feel, it was like as a result of sitting in my school's library at the time, just like going through all of these old books about like, oh, like here's some sick Yusaku Kamakura posters from the Festival of Lights. Like here's like some crazy, you know, medieval European woodcuts from the 1500s. Like it was like going through all these pieces which sort of like interested me on their own and starting to see how I could fit them together rather than approaching it as graphic design, I guess. So like, it's weird. I almost feel like my career was like an accident in a weird way, because like I can't think of a time maybe prior to this when like me being interested in the things that I'm interested in and putting them together the way I do would have been as appealing to people, if that makes any sense. So like I'm grateful for that, but it's, I don't know, to this day it's not like, I'm not really like looking at graphic design when I'm working on graphic design. It's always like thinking about something else or working on something else, and that's what is inspiring whatever the output is.
Do you think that like that's obviously worked for you? And I think that a lot of the stuff that, I think you're right that some of the stuff you came up with may have not came to fruition if you were too influenced by like what was going on in our own medium. So do you think overall that is a bad thing, or like do you think it's more of a person to person kind of situation?
I think it's always going to be a person to person situation. I think it really depends on like what you want to do with something and like who you are as a person. Like there's no right or wrong way to do any of this. Like it's art, it's completely subjective, it's a technical skill, it's a process. So like I can only sort of speak from the very subjective viewpoint that I have on things. Yeah.
I get that. What kind of influences you then, or inspires you in this like current state rather than when you were in college and stuff?
I mean, like, it's a lot of the same through lines. Like, I'm constantly fascinated by just communication. The fact that we do it, the fact that it seems to work is incredible to me, because I don't know, like, it's that thing about, like, when I say the word blue, like, I think of a blue, you think of a blue, they might not be the same shade of blue. How do we know that we even interpret blue the same way? We don't. But there's sort of a collective agreement around what section of the wavelengths of the electromagnetic spectrum constitute the color blue. And we've come to like a collective agreement on that. And so we're playing this weird game of horseshoes with words where we somehow manage to land close enough to make stuff work.
Yeah.
And seemingly bridge this gap that exists between individuals. Because, like, you know, we're a brain floating inside of a skull, like being fed information. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to know exactly what's going on outside of that. But like, for that brief second in those conversations, we manage to throw the horseshoes close enough that we feel like we understand another brain floating inside a skull. And like, that's a miracle to me. That's amazing. There's also just like, I grew up kind of religious. So like, I don't know, like, there's a fascination for me about religion, why it does the things it does, why it moves people the way it does. That's always going to be there, I think. Just like, on some level, like the idea of, you know, not even faith, but like actually religion, like the ritual to it, is super interesting to me. This idea around, like, you know, to that, going back almost like the thing about being a brain floating in a skull, is like this idea of like separation between things and like what actually separates us from the world around us. Like, lately I've been reading Flatline Constructs, which is a book by a philosopher named Mark Fisher, where he uses cybernetics as a means of sort of like showing, like demonstrating that like there really isn't a hard line between what constitutes life and non-life. Like a rock and a human being are not made of like different things. We're all made up of like a series of atoms, and if you can take the body and augment it and grow it and expand it with cybernetics, like at what point is that no longer alive, or does life even come into play, you know? And so it's this idea that like, you know, life, it sort of comes back to that again, like very like Buckminster Fuller, like I appear to be a verb. Like, life is like a process, and it is like an ongoing set of reactions that is occurring. And so like, that's very fascinating to me, is like the idea that like, it's almost like animistic. There is no separation. Like, everything is equally part of this thing that is an ongoing process that is occurring. And yeah, I don't know, that's definitely in there.
Yeah. I don't even remember what I asked you, but that was I don't remember. Fascinating explanation.
I definitely, what sitcom was it where the character is like, like sometimes I don't know where I'm going when I start a sentence, but
yeah, I do that too. And it sucks when I'm asking a question, because then sometimes I'm like, I think I remember too what it was, but then I fill it in with something like way shittier. And it's just like, that was really your question that you couldn't think about.
I really wish I could give like these like very pithy, nuanced, focused answers to anything, but I feel like ADHD brain, I just like spiral outward endlessly. And
I like it though.
Yeah,
like
hopefully
that.
Somewhere in that like scattering of information, like some of it is close to the target, you know?
Yeah, I think it is. And it's like, even if it isn't, like, I'm glad it's always nice to just land even in another area and see what happens from there. One of the last things that I wanted to kind of ask you is, what kind of things do you think that you, like, considering all the stuff you've done so far already, I think it's like really great achievements. And I think that you're a super talented designer, and I'm curious what kind of things you want to be doing, you know, maybe in the next second leg of your career or within the next 10 years, if there's anything that interests you that you're not quite into yet.
I mean, it's interesting because like so like every once in a while I'll do like those Instagram Q&As where everyone's like, a question that I get asked a lot is like, who do you want to work for? And like I never have like a good answer to that because I don't really ever want to work for anyone. Like I want to work with people, and I know that sounds like semantics, but I do see a distinction there between like being a collaborative unit and like a sort of like this like egalitarian like communal process versus like just executing on stuff. So like to that extent, like I just kind of want to keep working with people that I think are doing like interesting interesting work, like work that I see like artistic merit in. And I just kind of want to be, because to a certain extent, again, like it does feel like a sort of mutual recognition where you go, I see what you're doing as having artistic merit. You clearly see what I'm doing as having artistic merit. And we see room to share what we do with each other and build something that's hopefully greater than the sum of its parts. So I just want to keep doing that and like build on that and find new and exciting ways to approach that and widen the net of people that I'm working with and the type of projects that I'm working on, and like build that community on a smaller, more like a maybe like capitalistic entrepreneurial tip. Like I definitely want Total Work to like keep growing. Like I want to see like how far I can push that and like where it could go, because like like it started off as like the first, obviously like that idea when I was a student, but like the first Total Work shirt I ever made, I just printed up 30 shirts and just gave them away to friends for free. I was like, here, just take these, wear them. This is going to be my thing. So like I want to see like all the things that I might be able to explore with that, and like who sees merit in that and who's interested in that. Because again, I feel like it's a thing that I do which is very not anti-commercial, but it's very much catered to who I am and what my interests are. And I don't know, like seeing that resonate with other people and like seeing other people who share those same fascinations is always like really cool. So like I want to keep growing that and growing that community, because I think there's room for like people who are like, oh, I like hardcore, I like electronic music, I like harsh noise, I like Mark Fisher, I like Raph Simmons, I mean like all of these things probably sound like there's already stuff that like caters to that group, that type of person. But for me, I guess I felt like there was something that I wasn't seeing that I wanted people to see. So hopefully I keep growing that community of people who also want to see that.
Yeah. And I think it's dope, man. And I'm excited to see what you collaborate on in the future. And I'm stoked to see more of the Total Work stuff. I really like it so far. Even that shirt you're wearing, I really like that. And to know that you made the typeface, even better. And I just want to say thank you for coming on too. And
no, definitely. I appreciate it. Oh no, I was just going to say, I also apologize because I feel like half of this interview has almost made, or this podcast has just like sounded like me plugging like Total Work, like Total Work. But
you're all good, man.
I just want to like, that's just because it's like what I'm stoked on. It's basically just
it's
me
your passion
doing
project.
me,
I get it.
because I don't know. But I definitely appreciate you having me on. Like I'm generally terrified by interviews again, or like like any, you know what I mean? Like, cause again, I tend to like spiral out, and like I think I did like an It's Nice That write up where I just ended up talking about Hideaki Anno and Evangelion the whole time, and I'm like, fuck, I am gonna hate hearing the things that came out of my face later on. But I appreciate you having me on. It's always cool to chop it up with someone about life and design and all that other stuff. So
of course. And thank you again for coming on. And everyone, you can check out more of Jackson's stuff on Total Work or jdg.94 on Instagram. Mad decent stuff, all that. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.